what's going on? Happy days to everybody. My name is Tom Ettinger. I'm the host of Every Second Counts podcast. Today is an exciting day. We have country music star, Army veteran, Schafer Mueller. He's going to be coming on the podcast today. We're going to talk about him, his singing career, his Army experience, and we're going to go on from there. So without any further ado, I'm going to like to welcome Schafer Mueller to the studio.
Hey, brother, what's going on?
Hey, man, how are you?
Oh, man, living somebody's dream. I don't know whose yet, but I'm living it.
Hey, I appreciate that. I can appreciate that. So you are a busy man.
Nonstop, it seems, especially now.
Yeah, and you have a good assistant.
Yeah, she does everything for me. I don't have to do too much thinking on the music side.
Hey, that takes a little off the pack though, right?
Yeah, it definitely does.
So what you've been on podcasts before, you've been telling your story, you've been doing that. I do things a little differently. I want to start not I don't care where you went to middle school, you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
want to get into your Army experience that drove you to the career that you're doing now.
yeah, man.
So what made you join the military to begin with?
So it was something, watching movies and all that, and 9/11 happening when I was young, and it's always been there in the back of your mind. I think most people had it. They're watching these things like, man, I want to do that, I want to do this, and screw terrorists and all that. And I was in high school, and all I could think about was joining the military. And I was taking some engineering classes, and my teacher at the time, he was an Army guy. He got out and started teaching some engineering and
Hmm.
architecture classes. And I looked up to him a little bit, and I was like all in it. Everything I made had to do something with the military. And then my brother-in-law, or ex-brother-in-law, but he's a Green Beret, and so he's always talking about it. He's like, "Man, you gotta do this." And so it was there, and I don't know if I was nervous to do it or what, but I told myself, all right, when I get out of college, I'm joining, right? Like that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to go to school for engineering, yada yada yada. And then when I was in school, it just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy the engineering side of school or anything like that. So I started thinking
How
more and
long did
more
you do
about it.
that?
3 years. So I was in my senior year when I left. So it
Oh,
was pretty deep in it.
what was the support about? I mean, there's always going to be pros and cons of support about joining the military.
Yeah.
What was the pros and cons of leaving engineer school,
Well,
or becoming an engineer and graduating in your
yeah.
senior year? That
There
has
was
to be
definitely
exciting.
yeah. There's definitely a lot of cons, I think. When I told my family I was joining, my mom was upset. She was all scared and why you gotta do that, blah blah. Blah. And then my dad was like, "Man, you should have graduated as an engineer." Like neither of them were very happy with the decision. They were like, "Man, that's my dad." I think his quote was, "You're too smart to do that," or something like that. And so that wasn't an, an easy thing for them. But for me, I'll tell you, when I left, it finally felt right. So like the pro would be when I left and got to hell, even reception, it just felt great. Like I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I was like, this is
Hmm.
awesome. So I think for me, I mean, I wanted to do it, but my family didn't want me to do it. And it ended up being something that I love and I look back on, and I wish. I always tell Kat this, like I think about going back in, but there's good times in it and there's bad times in it. And so it's like what outweighs what. But in the beginning, it was awesome. Like I just looked at it from the side of like, man, I'm getting paid to go work out, shoot guns, blow things up. Like this is awesome. And then you're like,
Hmm.
man, I'm getting paid nothing to mop up a floor, like
No, I get it.
there's
Yeah.
pros and there's cons. But oops. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's I think for me, like when I was in college for engineering, I was doing that because I was like, "Man, I need to get a good job. I need to make money," and,
Hmm.
all I cared about at the time was, like, starting a family. Everybody in my family had kids at, like, 18. So I was like, "I wanna have kids before I graduate college, and I wanna settle down and have a family. So what's the quickest route to get there? How am I gonna be able to support them?" So I was good at math in high school, and that one class with that, Mr. Hackett, he was, an old army guy, and
Hmm.
he was pretty young, actually, but he was an army guy, and he kind of pushed me towards engineering. I was good at it, and I loved that class, and he's probably the one teacher I remember the name of from high school. But, so I don't know. I think I went to college for engineering before that. I was like, well, I'm good at it, this, that, the other, and it's going to be a good career. And, then I realized it just didn't make me happy. Like I didn't like it at all. For 3 years of all the classes, I was like, this is not what I thought it was. Like I have the mind to create stuff, but
Hmm.
it's not fun, you know? It's not you get nothing out of it. Like I
I
don't know.
think I think people get the total opposite of that when they join the military.
Yeah.
They think they're gonna love it. They think
Yeah.
it's gonna be this, and then once you're there, it's like, well, this is it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely true. Like I think when I joined it was because I was starting to feel like I had like I don't know, I just didn't feel like I had a purpose or whatever.
Hmm.
So I went and I talked to the recruiter. I dropped out of college, went to talk to the recruiter and said, "Hey, I wanna do a combat job and I wanna leave as soon as possible." And he was like, all right, let's take the ASVAB or whatever." I got like a 96 and he was like, "You don't wanna do combat." I was like, "No, I do." He was like, "Trust me, you don't wanna do combat." He's like, You can do these other jobs." And I was like, I wanna leave now and I wanna do something combat. Like if I'm gonna do it, I wanna do it 100%. And, so I tried enlisting as infantry and it was, September when I was talking to the recruiter, and he was
Hmm.
like, "Well, they leave in, I wanna say, like, February, for basic." I was like, "Nah, what leaves sooner?" He was like, "Combat engineer leaves sooner." And I was like, "Let me look into that." So I watched, like, one YouTube video of sapper school, and I was like, "Yeah, sign me up." And I left a week later. So it was
Woo!
quick. Like, I wanted to get up and get out, and, so that was something that, like, I had that like, "Well, I wanna do something with purpose. I wanna do this." I watch all these movies, and honestly, I thought about this the other day. I was talking to my buddy about it. I think there was some interview with some country star that wrote a letter to herself or whatever.
Hmm.
And I remember a letter that my teacher in high school made me write myself as a freshman, and we got it my senior year. And as a freshman, I wrote that I was gonna join the army, and die before I was 30 in combat. And I remember reading that my senior year, like, man, freshman year, I thought I was just gonna like join the army, go over there and die. Like that was it. And so I,
That's dark.
yeah, I know, right? And so that was, I guess, my plan in high school was to die before I was 30. And so when it came time for me to join and I thought about it and I was like, man, I want to like maybe I want that to come true, you know? Maybe I want to join and I want to see stuff and I want to do something that has some kind of purpose. Like I want people to look back if I'm gone and be like, he did something. So that's why I went that route and that's why I went combat engineer was because it was leaving it the soonest and it was like at the time I mean on Google it said it was like one of the most dangerous ones. I was like, sweet, I like it. So
Did you now a lot of people that would listen or could hear that, I'll go join the army, I'll be dead by the time I was 30. They could look at it and see that could be, seem different as a
yeah,
comment from someone, but I get it
yeah,
from an epic standpoint to, you know what, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna join the army, I'm gonna go out while I'm in the army, I'm gonna go out as a hero
yeah.
doing some cool shit.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that
Yeah,
so yeah, so I understood it when you said it,
yeah.
but as a freshman in high school,
I don't I think yeah, I mean, I was in I guess, a different spot than I ever really, like, sat back and looked at when I was in high school, but,
Mhm.
looking at it now or talking about it now, I think I just didn't feel like I was kinda hidden in the background. I didn't feel like I had a reason for anything, and so I think I wrote that letter to myself thinking like, "All right, well, you'll go out, you'll have a reason, and people will think of you." And I think, like all those Veteran Day things in high school, I'd look at those and be like, "That's gonna be me." Like, I want my picture up there. Like, that was my motivation. Like, I just I wanted to serve and I wanted to go out swinging, I guess. And so that was my plan when I joined.
Mhm.
And then, I got the realization and the real part of the army, which was like, you're gonna train and you're gonna mop, and you're gonna do a lot of nothing. And so that was like that was the worst part was getting there and being all already, like getting out of basic, getting out of airborne school, going to my unit and being like, yeah, I know this shit, like
Mhm.
let's go blow some shit up, let's deploy. And then it was like a year of nothing happening. We'd train all the time, but it was like, what the hell are we training for? And then it was 2 years of just training and sitting at the company all day because it's like, well, you have to work till 6 p.m. You're not leaving. You have to be here at 5 a.m. Like, we're not doing
Oh,
anything. Like, sit
yeah.
downstairs and study explosives. Like, okay. So it started to get
Where,
really, really
where was
bad.
your school at?
Was that
Where was your A school at? Where was combat?
Leonard Wood, um,
Oh,
Missouri? Yeah,
okay.
Misery.
So, where'd you go from there after
Uh,
your school? Well, how long was the school there?
so it was OSUT, so it was basic and AIT, and shit, I don't even. I got in trouble in basic. I don't think I've ever said that on one of these podcasts, but I had to double down. So I got into my 11th week of basic. You're supposed to do like graduation 10th week or whatever, 11th week, and then we immediately start our combat engineer training and do
Mhm.
AIT at the same base. And it was right around that time I had snuck a phone into the barracks and had it hidden in some baby wipes, and it. I don't know if it was my idea, but I definitely took the fall. So I snuck out from church one day. It was like the 8th or 9th week was the first time we didn't have drills with us when we went to church, or they went with us, but they didn't like follow us to the bathroom. So I was like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
go take a piss. Walked over to the PX and bought a phone because there was a couple guys that were talking about their girls and whatnot. I was like, man, I'll just get a phone. I'll sneak it back. Like I feel like I'm smart enough to get it in. Don't worry. And I was. And so we had a phone for like a month. And I cut the back of like baby wipes because we all use baby wipes when we wipe our ass in the army, you know.
Mhm.
And so I cut that little slip and I pulled out them and I put it in a Ziploc, put it in the middle. I had the pieces hidden when I came back and got searched, but I finally put it together, had it in there, and then we would just be like, "Hey, you need some baby wipes?" and go to the bathroom. So it was like 5 of us that were sharing this phone, and I probably didn't use it as much as I should have for me getting in trouble, but those guys had logged into their Facebook. They had logged into like Instagram. I think there was Instagram at the time. I don't know, but they had a bunch of stuff logged in, and like some of them made calls and didn't delete anything. And one day, this guy, I don't remember his name. It wasn't worth remembering, but he brought me the phone um, out of the bag after the bathroom. He was like, "Here, thanks for letting me use this," and threw it to me. And this dude that was in the bunk beside me,
Mhm.
he just immediately walked to the drill sergeant's office and was like, "Schaefer's got a phone." And they called me in there, and he was like, "Hey, I heard you had a phone." And I was like the hot shot, right? Like I wanted to be there. I knew all my stuff. Like I was the guy. I was like what basic training, like the squad leader and everything.
Mhm.
And so I think it pissed him off more. He was like, "Man, you're supposed to be like you're the good one. Like what the fuck are you
Yeah.
doing?"
You
And I
don't have
was
any integrity.
yeah, and so he was asking me, and I was like, "No, I don't have a phone." He was like, "So if I go," and at this time, like he called me in there when I still had it in my hand, so I threw it in my bunk, didn't get to hide it or anything. And he called me in there. I said, "No, I don't have a phone, man. That would be so stupid." And he was like, "Well, somebody said they had a phone." I was like, no, that dude's just jealous, whatever. I don't have a phone." He's like, "All right, so we're gonna go check your bunk right now." And I was like, "Well, if you do that, you're gonna find a phone because I got a phone." And he lost his shit, and he started going off on me and everything, and I got the boot. And then when I went to go talk to my commander, he was like, "Hey, I don't think you used the phone. I think you were holding it, but I don't think you used it." And I was like, "No, it was just me." He was like, "Who else knew about it?" I said, "Nobody else." And he was like, "Look, I looked at the call records, and I know the phone number is this person's like significant other because it's on the records. So I know this person
Mhm.
used it. This person's logged on their Facebook. I know they used it. This person's on Instagram. I know they used it." And he just went down the list of like all 5 people, but my name wasn't on it at all. He's like, "I have no record of you on the phone, but all of them I know. So just say they did it, and you can stay and graduate." And I was like, "Now I'm the only one that used the phone." And he got even more mad at me then. Like this commander was pissed off that I wouldn't throw them under the bus. And he was like, "All right, well, you either get kicked out or you can start from day zero." I was like, "All right, I'll start from day zero." I was like, "I'm pretty good at this stuff." So I had to restart basic from day zero. I had to go meet up with the people getting off the bus with my bags. And so then when they were running off the bus, I was just standing there waiting for the bus and then ran in behind them. And the other drill sergeants knew me because they talked to my drill sergeants. And so they were like fucking with everybody else. And they came up to me after that little hell day. And
Mhm.
they're like, "Hey, like we know your shit. Just help these dudes out. We heard you were like one of the best and everything. You just made a stupid mistake." Like, and we heard that it was most likely other people and they're getting to graduate and you're not. So just keep your head up or whatever. And so they were cool. So I got to like I ended up becoming friends with a lot of those drill sergeants while I was there. So like my second time doing basic training, real easy. But it was so for me, I did an extra 10 weeks plus an extra 4 weeks of like holdover time. Um and so it ended up being a long time, but I think it's generally like 18, 17 weeks of training total for basic, and then
Mhm.
the combat engineer stuff. Because by the
Did
time I got
that didn't change your job at all?
no,
Oh, wow.
no, and I didn't go in with the airborne contract, and then
Mhm.
they gave it to you like the highest PT. They have like two airborne slots. And so my first time in basic, I was trying to get that, and they were like, "All right, you're going to go to airborne school." So I was like, "Hell yeah!" And then my second time, they were like, "Hey, we heard that if you can keep your PT score up," and so I had the highest PT score both times in basic, and so I got the airborne slot, and that was pretty cool. So that worked out for me. So I mean, when I got to AIT, I had been a holdover with those AIT guys, so I had already become
Mhm.
friends with all those instructors because they're not drill sergeants, they're just instructors. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna work on some demo knots. We're gonna work on some C4 on some cratering charges." Like I was helping them do that when I wasn't actually in it, so I got to do all that twice, which was even cooler. So I think like I don't know. After it was all said and done, I could have been out of there. I left in September, probably by like January or whatever would have been the first graduation. I ended up leaving in May, I think. So I was there from September to May, and then went down to Benning
Mm.
and did my airborne school down there. And airborne school was like 3.5 weeks, so it was just quick. And then I ended up getting up to Alaska in June. Um,
That was your first duty station up
yeah,
there?
yep. Getting off
So
the plane and it was sunny and bright at 2 a.m. or 11 p.m. It was awesome.
so you're in the Army almost 2 years just
Yeah,
before you
well,
get stationed?
yeah, I was almost 1 year before I got to my first duty station, and that changed. So my original orders were to be at Leonard Wood as a bomb dog handler, before I got the airborne school contract, and then I got rebooted and restarted, and then it was looking like I was going to go to Bragg with the airborne contract, and I was like, hell yeah, I want to go to Bragg, you know. And it wasn't until I was in my final week, like jump week of school,
Mhm.
where I got orders to Alaska. And at this time, I had an ex-wife. I had a wife, and she was like, "I'm not going to Alaska." She was all mad, so she started like sleeping with dudes to get out of that. And so
Oh, wow,
that's
okay.
what, yeah. But so from September from September to June, I was in basic training in AIT and airborne school. So I didn't get to my unit till however many months that is, pretty close to
Mhm.
a year. And then I got up there and I thought I was the shit, you know. I was like, man, I'm ready to go. I came in there answering all these questions and like, who knows this about demo and that, and I was like, yeah, I know everything. Like, let's do this, and I did, and so it showed. So I immediately, like within 2 months of being there, I got some favoritism from the.
Mhm.
Came in as the E3 and all that. Granted, I had gone to college first, so I had a little bit more years on me than the other like E3s, E4s. So I was hanging out with E6s and, stuff I shouldn't have been doing. So I was friends with all these guys, and then people got pissed off and they were like, "Man, what the fuck?" I was like, "Well, I know my shit and y'all don't. You've been here for 3 years, started making enemies." And I got jumped by a group of dudes my first month there at a
Oh,
bar.
wow.
And this was in uh I was in Alaska for a month before I got to my unit, right? All the in processing. And so this is when I was in there, and I guess they probably didn't know me that I was gonna be in their unit, but it was the day before I got to the unit, and I just there was like 5 dudes. I just got the shit beat out of me, right? And I was sitting in a car at a stoplight, and the window rolled down. And I started getting punched. So the dude that was driving me, I mean, I guess he knew about it, right? Because I was in the front seat. He was driving me around. I didn't know the area. We're
Mhm.
leaving the bar, and the window rolls down. I start getting punched while I'm trying to get my seatbelt out. I'm just getting punched in the face, and then he drives off. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And turns out they were in my unit. They were in the other platoon, and so I got there, and the first day there, my face was all fucked up. And my platoon sergeant pulls me aside. He's like, "Hey, I heard you got in a bar fight with a native last night. Something he didn't like military, and you held your own." I was like, I looked over it, and he had the other guy that was punching me beside me. He pulled both of us aside, and I was like, "This seems like a test." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know, dude. The guy was drunk. Must be some native Alaskan. I don't know." And he was like, "All
Mhm.
right, cool. Keep that shit and just win." And then went back to PT. So we never talked about it. And that dude and I kind of became friends a little bit. He got kicked out for drugs not long after that. But that was like my first experience when I got up there was like, this is fucking not the army I thought it was. Like I was all gung ho ready to go, and I get there and see people mopping floors and beating up dudes for no fucking reason, and then just doing drugs and coke on the weekends, and it was
Doesn't
stupid.
seem like the commercial of taking the hell.
Yeah,
That doesn't seem like the combat ready situation you were
yeah,
preparing for.
yeah. That dude also got in trouble. I think right before I got there, he and those 5 guys like held a dude down and like shoved a broom up the dude's ass, and they got in trouble for that. So all those dudes got kicked out. Not long after everything, but I don't know what they're doing now. Probably not much, but it was a
Man,
weird thing to go into. Like, man, yeah, we're gonna fucking go there, deploy, we're gonna blow shit up. Boom, this is not what I thought. This is like a frat house. Like this is stupid. And so it
mhm.
was a whole nother world than I thought it was.
How was the situation leading up to going to Alaska? Like that's like when you get orders, that suddenly just say Alaska.
Yeah. I so I mean, I think at first I was pretty bummed about it, and I was like, man,
Hmm.
this fucking sucks. Like I don't want to. I wanted to be near home. I wanted to be near Virginia and North Carolina. So I really wanted to get Fort Bragg, but knowing before I went to airborne school, I knew that if I was airborne and a combat engineer, I could go to Italy, Bragg, or Alaska. Those are the only options. I just didn't think Alaska was going to happen. I was like, there's no way I'm going out there. And I heard they were getting rid of the unit out there anyway. So I was like, no chance. And then,
One of those conversations. It's not going to happen to me.
yeah, exactly. And then it happens. And
Hmm.
I was, I was like in between of excitement and being pissed off because I didn't want to go. But then at the same time, I had this issue with my ex-wife going on and I didn't want to go home. And so I think that actually helped me where I was like, you know what, screw everybody at home. Like I don't want to be there. This might be good. I get to go to a place people pay thousands of dollars to go visit. I'm going to go live
Hmm.
there. So I think at first I was pretty like upset and didn't want to go. And then I started convincing myself like this is awesome. Like this is an opportunity that people don't get to have. Like you're in the army, you get to do this cool stuff, but also you're gonna go see a state that people want to vacation at, and you're gonna get to
Yeah.
live there. So I was like, honestly, Alaska and Hawaii, those are places that you can go in the military and you're living a vacation for however long you're there. So I think I
Hmm.
changed it around in my mind and was really excited by the time it came for me to leave and go.
Until you got there.
Yeah. I was still excited though. It was cool. I got
Hmm.
out there and it was like, man, this is a beautiful place. And we were having bonfires all summer until like 3 in the morning. It was still sunny. And I met a group of guys there that I became friends with. It was just,
That
yeah,
first initial
yeah. I
welcome to
wasn't,
Alaska.
yeah. And I wasn't really good. I wasn't friends with the shitbags my first year, I was friends with the guys that had their head on straight and
Hmm.
they were my age. So I was out drinking with, um, not talking to them at the company during work, but I was out drinking with the captains, the LTs, and the squad leaders, like those are the dudes
Hmm.
my age, and those are the guys that I'm on the same intellectual path with, and so
Yeah.
that probably put a target on my back early on from the dudes who got there, like, what the fuck? Why is he hanging out with them outside? Like, so we had to try to hide it outside of work, but it's hard to hide in Alaska. Like, there's only like 5 bars that you go to.
No, I can imagine that, and
Yeah,
being so desolate out there,
yeah,
and the fraternization and all the nonsense. But like you said, you're in Alaska.
yeah.
There's only so many places you can go.
Yeah, if you're not friends with people in the military, there's not a lot of options to be friends with people outside the military unless they're vets that stayed there. So later
Hmm.
on, I became friends with a bunch of dudes that were not in the military. But my first year there, it was all my military buddies, and most of them were in charge of me at some point, And it was either that because those are the guys that I got along with, or it was hanging out with guys that I didn't get along with that were fresh out of school, 18, 19, just wanting to do shit that I've already done. Like, I don't wanna do that crap anymore, I was
Absolutely, yeah.
20, 22 maybe when I got to Alaska or 23, I don't remember,
Hmm.
so, I mean, I was past that party college stage of my life. Like, I wanted to go out to the bars, but I didn't have any interest, like, staying home, getting messed up off 4 Locos or anything. Like, I was like, "I'm just
Hmm.
trying to go to the bar and drink legally, like, this is fun."
Yeah,
So,
like you already lived that college
yeah.
life.
Yeah, it was like a frat party with the lower enlisted and then a normal 20s life with the upper. So it was like, I'm not gonna hang out with the lower enlisted, so my options were pretty limited.
Hmm.
I mean, I had a couple buddies. I had one guy that he was an E4, became one of my best friends when I was there. He got his 5, but he was a 4 when I was there, so we hung out all the time. And he had his head on right, and he's my age, so it worked out. Like the guys that were my age that were same rank, it was easy, but the
Hmm.
ones that were very young, it was hard. I mean, hanging out with an 18-year-old who's never left home before is different than even hanging out with like a 19-year-old who at least has been to college or lived life or had a job. But some of these dudes, they just came straight from mommy and daddy and never had to work for anything. So they just had this weird, I don't know, character about them.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So, what your first year went well in Alaska?
Yeah, I loved it, man. This was when I was still in my like, I'm gonna be the best I can be kind of.
Hmm.
This is before the army tore me down and realized that it's like all kind of shitty. In Alaska. Like I love the good parts about it. Training. I love training. Like that's just I'm a weirdo. Like I work out until I feel like I'm gonna throw up. That's just what I like to do.
Hmm.
So when everybody else was bitching about it, we would jump into like negative 30-degree um weather on the drop zone, camp out there for 2 weeks. And I was loving it. I was like, everybody else was bitching. And the first year I loved it. I started hating it, but I was like, this is awesome. I'm getting paid to look at the northern lights, jump out of planes, camp, and then shoot guns because we did a live fire every month, and we got to go breach doors because I was in the sapper unit, so we were the breach guys. So I'm like, we're putting C4 down our pants to warm it up, put a charge on the door, blow the door in. Like this is awesome. Like you can't go better than this. And
No.
so my first year was awesome. Summer came around, we had like competitions for tasks, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking win this. It was like 20 tasks over 15 miles, you and a partner, and you just kind of doing that's like a tough mudder but military version, right? So you go and like
Oh
one of the
wow. Okay.
obstacles is you have to ruck everywhere, right? And you have to they would like throw something at you and like figure out how to carry this. And so we would like tie bridges between me and the other guy with branches to hold some stuff and whatnot. And have oh, somebody just got shot in the leg, patch him up. This guy's got this, a whooping chest wound, yada yada yada. So along the whole thing, and I love that. People were like, man, this sucks. We're walking for like 20 miles. Like, this is awesome, dude. Like, we're
That's
just
what
getting
you're
to
doing.
yeah, this
Like.
is freaking cool. And,
Hmm.
so that was, like, the first summer I was there, and I loved it. I was like, "This is so cool." Like, I love this thing. And then at the end of it, we got to helocast, so we all it was freezing outside, but we got to jump up in a helicopter and jump out, um, helocasting into the water, right? So we didn't have a parachute or anything. They just flew over the water. We jump out with our ruck, and we swim back to shore. And that was probably the coolest experience I had. Like I got to say I jumped out of a helicopter and landed in water and swam to shore. I got to jump out of planes. Like that first year was awesome, and I loved every minute of it.
It kind of entailed everything you've been waiting for.
Yeah, everything I thought about the army, and then more.
Hmm.
Like especially when I started realizing because I had friends in other branches, but other jobs in the army, and it's like they're like, "What you got to? Yeah, you're airborne." Yeah, they thought that was cool, and then they're like, "Man, you got to helocast." Like, isn't like sapper dudes get to helocast, which is pretty much the only reason we got to do it because a lot of their dudes went to sapper school, so we had people that were trained up, and
Hmm.
so we got to do shit that a lot of people didn't get to do, which was well awesome. I was like, this is cool, like that's what I joined for. I'm getting to do things and get experiences I would have never had. But then the training kind of stopped the second year. We didn't do all the cool training. It was just ruck out to a spot every month, camp out there for 2 weeks, do a live fire, ruck home. And it was that over and over again. And it was just like, man, this is getting old. Like this got old real quick. And we were doing it with some of the infantry guys, and I almost got shot um, by some E6 during a live fire. We had a guy die from a live fire up there while I was there.
Wow.
But so we had as an engineer, right? I go and breach like we had wire, right, for these live fires. So we had some C wire, and I go throw down the picket with the C4 inside of it to make a shape charge, cut through the wire. Threw that down, ran back, popped it, go, and I'm starting to move the wire, and they're supposed to shift their fire and then lift fire. And so we throw shift fire. They don't shift. We throw lift fire. We pop our little thing up in the air, say, "Hey, lift fire." And I'm moving the wire, and the dude that's shooting right where I was at, he's got tracers, right? So I see fucking tracers go in front of me. I'm like, I turn around, this dude's still shooting. I throw the wire down, and I was probably not even. This was the first summer I was there. Probably like 3, maybe the first 3 months I was there. I threw the wire down and started like charging the guy, like all mad. And this guy grabbed me and he's like, "Oh, come on, let's go." And so we went and sat there, and that guy ended up being my best friend who's with I was with that day, Cash. But like that was kind of the experience. I was like, you know what, that was kind of cool. Like we got to do that and got to do these live fires. But I having people be idiots started messing with me. Like seeing the mistakes people were making. Like, come on, dude. Like just listen. Like, hey, shift fire, boom. And he was supposed to be. He was in for like 12 years. Like you should know to move your freaking gun. Don't shoot the kid in front of you. And I had that issue with it, and people were like, "Man, it doesn't really happen. Nobody, it's a live fire. There's safeties and stuff." Well, somebody got shot in the head at the same range, So, um, I don't know. That was all the first year though. So
No, and that's not the easiest thing to train during live fire, and and people make those mistakes, and you would have be living under a rock to think from recruit training to any kind of training we do. There's always kind of casualties. Someone
yeah.
always gets hurt. There's always something.
Oh, training
So,
incidents happen all the time. I mean, look at
hmm
Campbell last week. Like
hmm
always something.
and like you said, it's hard when you have the people, they get comfortable
Yeah,
and they think they what they know exactly what they're doing, and they become complacent, and that's people get hurt and they haven't even gone nowhere yet.
yeah. And then you also have people that are in charge just because they were liked and they were good at PT or something. When I got back from deployment, I remember this guy came in. I was like a temporary squad leader when I got back, and then this guy came in from a leg unit. I think at Campbell. I think he was at Campbell, and so it's a completely different job as a combat engineer if you're in a light unit or a heavy unit, right? And so he was in a heavy unit for 10 years or whatever, driving trucks around and whatnot. And he got out to us, and it's a whole different SOP. You're doing everything on foot. You're doing airborne operations. He just got his airborne, right? So everything's different. And my LT at the time was like, "Hey, man, you gotta help him out." Like and the guy kept asking me to help him, right? But at the same time, he I've never met anybody so ignorant at life. He asked some of our guys while we were in the field, "How do you know if the water's boiling?" Because you have to boil your water for your winter MREs.
hmm
How do you know when your water's boiling? Like, dude, you're almost 30. How do you not know how to boil water? Like when it bubbles, it's boiling. And
Right.
then for these live fires, you always do blank runs, right? You do walk, run, and then live. And they had like at JRTC, like how they have like the like laser tag shit, right?
hmm
I forgot the name of the system, but they had that. And this was right. I wasn't with him when he did this. He was with a different platoon, but he killed his whole squad as a squad leader. He killed his entire squad um, in the little laser fake world, right?
Yeah.
And so like I had no trust in this guy, and that's what ended up making me like really want to get out of the army. Was this guy was in charge of me, and he was making some dumbass calls, and I was like, dude, I know whatever you read in the book somewhere, it might be what that says, but that's not how we're gonna like. That's not how it works. And then it just caused a lot of tension between us. So this was my last year in the army, my last 6 months. So when this guy came in, and I was like, man, I became a shitbag. Like I became that shitbag I didn't like in my first year. That was me at the end. But I don't know if the guys from the first year that were shitbags because the same reason, because we had really good leadership that first year. Sergeant
hmm
Parker, man, he one of the best leaders I ever had, was my first squad leader. So um, for me, it was like I went from having great leadership to having the worst leadership I've ever had. And people were like, "Man, just go to another duty station. It changes." But then the more I talked to people, and all my buddies got out. Every one of my buddies got out before that, and I was like, "Fuck this! I'm the last one standing." I think that was like the last one that deployed that was still at that unit, and I was like, "Man, everybody else at that unit had never deployed, never like it was just a whole different ball game." I was like, "This isn't for me. I can't sit here and be told what to do from an idiot who's going to get us all killed if we deploy." And he's never seen combat, and he came from a truck unit, not an air. Like
hmm
it was just, and that was like the main reason I got out, which I think is what led to me getting so down when I got out. Because I used to like I when I first got out, I started thinking about the army a lot. Like I hated it. And then I got out and I was like, man, I missed like that first year, the first 2 years and deployment were the best times of my life. Like I loved that. It was awesome.
Where,
Training and deploying was amazing.
where'd you guys deploy to?
Afghanistan,
Where at?
Nangarhar.
Okay.
So the Momon Valley, you know where they dropped the Moab in
Hmm.
2017. 2 months later, after the Moab, we went in. Um, so right up from the Moab is where we would get dropped off on our well, it was Blackhawks and Chinooks sometimes, but we got dropped off at the LZ there, and we had to march up, and um, OP Bravo is where we were at, and then one of the SF guys died in a bazaar. His name was Butler, so they made an OP Butler up above that bazaar, so we were there, and so we bounced around between OP Bravo, OP Butler, uh, OP Diablo, which ended up getting um, dispersed and blown up, and then Mad Dog. And so we just bounced around for 9 months between these OPs. It was 12 SF dudes and 18 of us in our platoon as the turf guys. And so we just would push forward and create new OPs. So we just took over one of them. I think Diablo was like an ISIS stronghold. We
Hmm.
took over that. So it's just, a mud wall with a couple mud buildings in it. And that's where we lived. We put PVC pipe to pee outside of the brick wall and crapped in bags and burnt it. And so it
So
was,
you loved every part of your
yeah,
deployment?
yeah. I was burning the shit too because I knew how to drive a forklift before I joined the army. So I got the lucky job of taking the Bobcat out with the box of shit every day and burning it right
Oh,
outside the
nice.
wire. But yeah, I loved it, man. We would go down to pick up. We got sling loaded our supplies once a week, sometimes every 2 weeks, and I'd drive down to pick it up in the middle of the night with my nods on, and like it felt cool. It was like this is what I wanted to join to do. I'm driving. If we get contact, which is nighttime,
Hmm.
terrorists don't really have night vision, so it's a lot easier to do that. So I wasn't that worried, but it was like when I first got out there at the first OP, we were wearing our kit, we were wearing everything, full combat load, safety glasses, 2 months later, we all got complacent, right? I was wearing Ranger panties and had my gun and nothing else, maybe some sunglasses so I look cool if I die, and
Absolutely.
so we were just chilling and growing our hair out. I had probably this much facial hair is what they because the SF dude's like, y'all can grow your beard out. Like we have locals coming in, villagers coming in to eat dinner and talk to the SF guys a lot, and they're like, grow your beard out, whatever. They don't like to see the weapon, so don't walk around with your weapon when they're on base or whatever, or on the
Hmm.
OP. And then our leadership was like, no, you still have to have Army standards. So we were able to like get about this far before it was an issue because we had the commanders show up every now and then, fly in, check everything out. But nonetheless, I was like, I'm out here. I got a beard. I'm working out every day. I'm going down to pick up the sling loads, and like we could take contact. We're out here running what we trained to do,
Hmm.
coming back with it, and it was awesome. There was one time my buddy Sam and I were working out. They dropped off some like a barbell and some weights, and we ended up building a bench and something to hold the weights for a squat rack while we were out there. And so we were working out on the only flat spot was outside the little wall that we had. So we're working out outside of it, right beside it was right outside OP Butler. So down that hill's the bazaar where Butler died, and up that hill is something they called Shark Fin Mountain or Ridge. And so the ISIS would come up to the top of that and like fire rounds down, but it was too
Hmm.
far. They couldn't really aim. And then they go back over, and then our uh, our Afghans would go up and try to fire back down, and then it was like they ended up playing capture the flag, which is kind of funny. No, not that funny, but they would put the Afghan flag up there, and then the next day the ISIS flag would be in its place, and the Afghan flag would be down, and they were going back and forth, and then the ISIS ended up rigging it with an explosive. So when the Afghans went up and take the flag out, it blew up and killed a couple of Afghans or
Jeez.
whatnot. But that was like all right there on the hill. So we're working out one day, and the SF dude runs over, the Green Beret guy. He's like, "Hey, did y'all hear that? I just got a call on the radio from the Afghans that they just fired a rocket at us." And I was me and him like, we heard something, but we didn't hear a boom. We just heard like, you know. And he was like, huh. And then all of a sudden, we started taking like small arms fire, you know. So it wasn't hitting anything. We just heard them shooting in, but like I said, it's pretty hard to hit us from that point to where we were at.
Hmm.
And so they started firing back. I'm sitting out there in my Ranger panties. We run back, get our guns. You know, as soon as we get online, they had the 240 going, and it was over. And the guys ran away. Well, most of them just do pop shots and keep on moving because they're too scared. But we went down, and I guess supposedly these ISIS had fired a RPG at us, but they're so unpredictable. A, they're hard as hell to aim, so it hit way down in the bazaar, and then it didn't even blow up. So we had to go down there and bip it, blow it in place because it never went off. And so I was like,
So,
but that was
so
all cool shit, you know?
I gotta cut you off because I don't think people would actually realize that. So not only did they shoot at you, now you have to go retrieve the round that they shot at you.
Yeah, yeah. If they shoot a rocket and yeah, it's sitting down there, you know, it could go off or whatever. And so
Hmm.
we had to go down there and make sure that it wasn't gonna randomly go off or whatnot. So we bipped it, which is as engineers, we're not what do you call it? EOD,
EOD.
right? We don't disarm, we just bip. So you put C4 on top of it and blow it and just aim it away from where you're at. You know, whatever you find. If you find an IED on the road, put C4 on it, aim it away from civilians, and get back and blow it. You know, get rid of it instead of trying to disarm it. And so that's what we did. And then yeah, I don't know. That was the cool shit. Like I was actually getting to do my job. We were building some explosives one day and giving them to the Green Berets so they could go out on their missions. And so they would go do night missions and stuff, and then we'd push forward, or they'd come back and they'd sleep during the day while we are just pulling security during the day, and then they'd go out at night. But it was like, this is cool. Like I'm getting to do what I wanted to do. Like I would deploy uh, over anything else. I would do that over and over again. It was awesome. It was what like I said, it was what I signed up to do. And for me, it was like the one thing I liked was training and deployment because that's why I wanted to do it, you know?
Was it better being out at the OP by yourself instead of being in a traditional
Yes.
base? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when I was in Afghanistan, I was in Kandahar, and
Yeah.
we were out on the airstrip, but the guys that were out at we called them FOBs, the forward
Yeah,
operating
that's where
position,
yeah.
same thing,
So,
and
yeah, I was at Bath, and then so we flew into Bath, the airfield there in Bagram, and then we went out to Fob Fenty, which is another airfield, and that was in Jalalabad. And then most of the guys stayed at Fob Fenty, and only 4 platoons went out to these OPs. So it was a COP, combat outpost. So it was a little bit smaller, but
there ain't nothing out there.
no.
No
No.
Wi-Fi, no.
No, no, no,
I
no.
mean, I
So,
mean,
yeah, I think,
Hotmail was big when I went to
yeah.
Afghanistan. But yeah, it's a different situation being
Yeah.
out there than conventional army operations.
Yeah, I'll say I did not enjoy deployment when I first got to Afghanistan because we were at BAF for 2 weeks when we were waiting to go to JAF, and, so we were at
Mhm.
Bagram, and then, they take indirect fire, like, all the time, and so that was the first I was exposed to that. We were coming back from the gym, and we hear the alarms going off, and we're like, "What does that alarm mean again?" We kinda forgot, and then it was like, "Incoming, incoming, incoming." Ah, shit, and then so you run into the bunker, and the indirect had hit right outside our bunker. We went back the next day because nobody believed us, and we had our phones because this is BAF. We had internet and our phones and power, and so we filmed it, and it had tore up the side. I got a picture of me and the 2 guys I was with. It tore up the side of a Connex. It hit the ground, put a divot, and that was right at the bunker that we had got in because we were like, "Fuck, that was
Oh.
loud. That was so close." Like, no, yeah, yeah. We were not in that bunker. That shit was hitting us, and so that was like our first experience. And nobody like, whatever, dude. That was so far away. Like, no, that was all like we were over there because everybody else was staying in their little bunks waiting to leave. We were like, we're gonna go find the gym on Bath. So like that was something that I didn't like is like you're sitting there at the USO playing Xbox at Bath, right? And you're chilling during the day. And so you're not getting to like go out and do combat stuff, but you're still getting indirect fire and it's random. Like you're not expecting it. And I think that was scarier. It was that you weren't expecting it. We were just literally coming back from leg day and like, oh shit, it's coming down. And the C-Rams, they're hearing like, and but it missed it, right? And so like I don't know. I didn't like that. And like I said, it didn't really feel I didn't know I didn't like it until we got out to Jaff, and then it was a little bit more secluded, and there was, like, one chow hall, and a shitty little tent gym and a small
Mm-hmm.
airfield. And then we got out to the OPs, no power, no internet, no phones, no bathrooms, no water.
In the
They had to,
desert,
yeah, they just it was an
boxes of water bottles.
yeah, a mud wall, and they sling load you water, MREs, SF2's got Pop Tarts and Gatorade, and then fucking shit bags, little bags that you crap in. So we built a bathroom that you put the bag in and everything. And then eventually I built a shower, like a little thing to go hold the water and like have it pour over you and whatnot, so you could kind of bathe. But most of the time, like I don't think anybody really, like, every 30 days we might have showered. Just wasn't worth it. Um, but yeah, it was a whole nother like the thing about camping in the woods. But for 9 months, you have nothing, and so
Yeah,
it
it's
was
sand and sand everywhere,
yeah.
blowing and
Yeah, I think that was the part that I loved the most though, is, I did not like my time back at Jaff or Bath, and we'd go to an OP for 30 days, we'd come back for 4, to shower and eat, and then go back out, and, in that 4 days, you got the USO. I got to the one of the 4 days gaps I was there was the Super Bowl, so I got to watch the Super Bowl at the USO, but you're you're stuck with the garrison lifestyle. Like, people still bugging you when you're walking down, like, "Hey, why didn't you salute him? Where's your PT belt? Why didn't you shave?" Like, dude, we're in a fucking war zone. Like, shut up, you know? And so I love being out at the OPs because
yeah,
that shit didn't matter. It was like, keep your eyes out there, do this, do that, chill. Everybody was just chilling. And so,
yeah. You're not at the exchange on Fort Hood.
yeah, e-
Relax.
exactly. Like, the dumbest thing. And I
Because
had buddies that never left Jalalabad, and
mhm,
they would run up to there was a couple times we were there for that, like, 4-day gap where people had breached the wire or whatever, so we were all pulling security throughout the whole thing looking for these guys, and then, um, the guys that never got to leave there, they were just there as support, as, the code word was tsunami at the time, whenever it'd be a little tick where they had to send out, whatever the fuck it's called, quick action, QRF.
oh,
And,
okay.
so that's what mostly Jaff was, just QRF guys and then support guys, but they would, if they're not doing QRF, they're fixing the fence. So I had a buddy, he was out there fixing the fence, and a guy ran up and threw a grenade at them, so he got to get a kill without ever leaving base, which was cool for him, but he was scared shitless, I think, and everybody over there was. They were like, they weren't expecting it. They're out there putting sandbags up against the wall, and a
Yeah.
random Jalalabad dude runs up, "Hey," with a little Russian grenade, so but yeah, I don't know, man. I would not want to deploy and be stuck in a garrison kind of place. I didn't like that part of it. It was cool having food every day. Like, I was able to get in shape because I was working out and eating.
Mhm.
But the experience of being out in the middle of nowhere and having like little kids come up to the gate asking for food and stuff and throwing rocks at you, that was kind of cool.
How different would it be going back now and having to sit there and think with all that time?
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how it would feel now. I'm not as gung ho
Mhm,
as I used to be, and
mhm.
yeah, it'd be a whole different ballgame. And now I have a kid and something. I don't have a will to die like I used to.
Yeah, it's a big difference
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I was
So
I was ready for it all back then. So
so when you were going through college and before you joined, did you sing or play your guitar then? Was that something you always did?
yeah, I wanted to always do it. So I got a guitar when I was like 12 or 13. My
Mhm.
granddad played, and I got like an old Fender Squire, and I wasn't very good, but I'd sit up in my room. It was what I did. Um, my parents got divorced when I was a freshman, and I didn't get, like, sad or anything like that. My sisters, they were going through some shit, I think, and for me, it was just like, "Yeah, whatever, they don't love each other, and it's done." But I guess subconsciously, there was something, so that's what I started, like, grabbing my guitar, just going, locking myself in my room and playing guitar during the day, whenever I'd feel down or whatever, and so I wanted to do that, I wanted to do music, and, I think that's when I started leaning more away from the military in college. I just wanted to go do music, and my senior year came up, and I was about to leave, and I told my dad and my sister, I was like, "Hey, I want to move to Nashville. Like, I've been studying these songwriters. I don't want to be famous. I just want to be a songwriter, you know?"
Yeah.
And they were like, nah, you don't write songs and you can't sing very good and you're not very good at guitar. Like, why don't you go to school for something and then we'll talk about it after school, you know? And so I took loans out and went to college and gave up music because I was like, well, they're right. I'm not good, you know? And I only played a little bit throughout college because there was girls in the hall and, you know, girls like guys that can sing and play guitar. So I was like, well, fuck it, I'll try this, you know? So I started picking it back up, but I didn't really take it seriously until the army. And my buddy Cole that I was talking about earlier, he played guitar and he heard that I brought my guitar and he was like, why don't we play or whatever? And so me, him, and this guy Travis, we played one night while everybody else went out to the bars, and we ended up like he was like, man, you're pretty good, whatever. So we started playing all the time, him and
Mhm.
I. And then when I got right before our deployment, there was an open mic night, and he was like, you should go out and do this. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah, because I had written a few songs, and he was like, yeah, you should go play these songs at open mic night. And I did, and I was like, all right. And he convinced me to go do that, and people cheered for my songs, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I like that. And then after that, I got back from deployment. I went back into the open mic night again, and the bar asked me to come play for 6 months, twice every month. And so I was like,
What?
all right. And so I was still in the army and I was playing. And then people were liking it and people were coming up and talking to me after the shows and they were like, this is like, you did blah, blah, blah. I love that song you wrote. And I fell in love with it again. Like, I didn't think it was for me until that happened. And then I was on a whole new train. I was like, this is what I want to do forever.
So, were you writing your own songs when you were going twice a month, or were you?
I didn't write after deployment, but on deployment, I wrote a song before I joined the army, which is actually funny enough. It's one of like I think it's like the last one I put out. It's called "Stubborn." But when I dropped out of college, I had started living in my car my last semester before I dropped out, and I saved up money. I was in a lot of debt. I saved up money and I bought a Taylor guitar instead of finding a place to live. I was like, this is more important, you know? And so I look back on that time before I joined the army when I was like stable again. I was like, wow, that was stupid, man. I was stubborn. I was like, I just want to do this. I didn't take help from anybody. I blamed other people. I was like, they didn't want to help me. My parents didn't want to help me, but that wasn't true. I just didn't ask for help. And so I wrote that song about that part. And then I didn't write any more songs really until deployment. And there's a guy, Sanso. I didn't have a guitar at first, and I was just like writing, you know, beating and
Mhm.
whatnot. And then the USO dropped a guitar off in one of the sling loads, and so we had a guitar out there, and I started writing some songs. And he was filming me. He's like, "Man, you're gonna be famous one day." Blah blah. He's a good dude. He's out in Arizona, but he helped me through that, and I wrote something to drink about while we were on deployment. And he filmed it for me out at one of the OPs. There's a video on YouTube of me playing. I was trying to do drums on an ammo can and stuff, and he filmed that on his phone. So when we got back to the States, he was able to post it, and that was something that he put words to it and everything. He was like, "Man, I'm gonna manage you. Like, we're gonna make this thing work." Yada yada yada. And so he helped me like get back into songwriting while I was on deployment, and he kind of was like, "Man, you got it. Like you got it figured out." Nobody else cared about me playing guitar or singing. Like I'd go in the corner, and me and him would play, and everybody else would be sleeping or watching movies on their laptop. Um, so when I got back, I had a few songs written, and that's what I played out at the open mic nights. And then when I started getting gigs, I was playing at night, but I was still in the army, so I was just going and playing covers all the time.
Mhm.
And it wasn't till I guess I wrote a few songs in that time before I officially got out, like dancing about my wife. I about Kat. I wanted to write a song about how we met, and I just sat down and told the story of how we met on a piece of paper, and then went back and was like, "That's a pretty easy song to write," and boom, wrote that, and that became one of the popular ones at all my gigs in Alaska. They started playing that one at all the bars there after I left, and dancing to it and everything. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so that until that was like 2019 was the last time I wrote a song, probably until 2022. Um, I went down like a 2019 to like 2022. I was in the dark spot and I didn't have any interest in playing guitar anymore. I was doing it because it was a job. I didn't have the excitement. I didn't have the creativity. I was just blah. and so I didn't write again for like 3 years. And this last year, I've written like 5 songs, so
When you were gonna make that decision to get out
mhm,
and say, "You know what? This I'm gonna do it this way now," because you're older,
yeah.
you have more experience. What was that thought process like, "I'm gonna get out of the Army"? Were you married yet?
Um,
Again?
no, no, we were together though, I was with her, yeah,
So there was a lot of prep now.
yeah.
So what was that thought process about getting out?
So, when I was going through, like, a fight with myself on whether I was gonna get out or not, right? And this was after deployment, and then that new squad leader came in and made me wanna get out, and then I was trying to weigh the pros and cons, and then I was like, "Well, Cat's in the Air Force. If we get married, we can't be on the same base unless it's a joint base, and with my job," and I started playing all these scenarios in my head. I was like, "Really, the only joint base is, like, here that both of us can be at," and
Mhm,
so she said she's not getting out. She loves it. She's staying in for 20 something years. And I was like, well, I don't love it. So like I'm not against getting out and started like the cons of staying in started outweighing the pros of staying in. And so um I kind of made the decision probably probably 4 months before my terminal um leave and I excuse me. In that time I definitely had like thoughts of like, man, should I get out? But that's when the music started taking off. And I was like, man, I can do music, right? I gave it up before, it's back, and now it's working. And back home, people didn't think music was an option for me, and people in Alaska did. And I was like, well, if somebody's listening, like after every show, somebody wanted to book me again, and I was like, well, this might be my thing. And so as I had those second thoughts about staying in the army or getting out, music, like I said, was starting to be like upward trajectory and be like, all right, this is something that makes me happy. I'm relaxing. I'm getting to do what I love. I'm
mhm.
making the same amount of money doing what I love as I did in the army. And I can go wherever I want to in the world and do this. And so um leading up to me actually getting out, it was a pretty easy decision. And I didn't really second guess it by the time I took terminal leave. I had a month and a half or whatever, and I was the happiest camper in the world. Hey, I'm out. I got my DD
Mm,
214. I got
mhm.
music as my job. Like this is awesome. And yeah, I didn't have any second thoughts about it until probably a year later or somewhere close to that. And that's where it started like going back downhill because that's when you leave something like the army or the military where you have this
Mhm.
structure and purpose. And then I've been playing music for a year at this point, and it's like, well, what's my purpose? I sing in a bar to a bunch of drunk people who don't listen. That's when I started like watching people as I would started playing. And yeah, somebody might come up after and say you're great, but there's 50 other people in the bar not even looking at you. And it's like it sucks. And so it's like, man, what is it all worth? Like I'm here for no reason. I'm singing these fucking silly songs on a guitar to people who don't care. And I used to mean something. Like I used to do something with some kind of purpose. And so I started going down and it started getting worse from there. So like getting out, leading up to getting out, making that decision was all easy. But then it was like, do I get back in? I had guys that got out that were in my unit that are back in now. Like they got back in, but Um, I started like weighing those options, but I was drinking a lot and I was making a lot of bad decisions. And
Was it helping you write? Was it helping your music career?
the
The
depression,
drinking?
the
Yeah.
drinking,
The drink was it beneficial to you for your process?
I think drinking was. Um,
Because
I
I know I mean, I don't write or anything, but
yeah,
I can imagine that, as someone who's creating
yeah,
and you have all that sadness, all the your mind constantly running,
yeah,
decisions, good or bad, wishes, wants, and things, and then plus deployment, and you're just trying to juggle all that together. To me, that seems like a hit album.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
And so yeah, I think like for me. I got to get out of my own head sometimes. So drinking, there's a certain like point in my night of drinking where I'm the most creative, and I do that to write songs. But at this point in that stage of my life where I was down, I wasn't drinking to be creative. I was just waking up and drinking all day, and so I had a little like I had thoughts running through my head that I wanted to put down on paper, but I didn't have the interest, you know, like you kind of lose your interest in things that you love. Like I didn't want to play guitar. Try to force myself to write a song. Like I want to put these words into a song. I grab my guitar and just sit there and I'm like, nah, fuck this. And I sit it down and I found myself of like 2 months of trying to put these words into a song. Just I found a month of where I just would I wasn't working at all, right? I was playing music at night. So Kat would be out at work and I'd just be at home all day. And I didn't watch TV. I just stared at the freaking wall. And then eventually I just lay down on the ground, just feeling empty, staring at the ceiling. And
Hmm.
there was one day where I was like, man, I've been doing this for like 3 weeks of just laying here for 5, 6 hours at a time, just staring at the ceiling. I was like, I need to get back. And I knew, you know, you go to the doctors and you take these little questionnaires that are like, "Are you depressed? Do you have little interest?" And I'm like, "Man, I had lost interest in music, which is
Past 2 weeks.
yeah." And I was like, I've completely lost interest in music, and that's my saving grace." So I wanted to force myself to play music again, and enjoy it, like be creative with it, not just
Hmm.
covers. So I was like, "All right, I'm gonna write a song. I'm gonna get this funk out of me." And so as I was laying on the ground, I pushed record on my phone and I just started blabbing, right? And 5 minutes later, I turned it off and I was like, "That's a song," and that's where the song "Happy" came from. I literally wrote it's a story verbatim of what I was feeling. I'm laying on the floor, staring at the ceiling. I had been there for a couple hours. I was empty, got no feeling, and I was like, "This is easy. Let's keep going." And that kind of re-sparked something in me, and I wrote that song, and then I just spent the next like week trying to fine tune it, and I finally had something to focus on. And then I didn't play it again, and Kat tried to get me to play it at a couple gigs because she heard it, but like I was still pretty down. And when I play it, it put me back in that spot. So like I'd get depressed on stage while I'm playing this song. So like I've probably only played it live like 5 times ever.
No,
Um,
it's a great song, and when I first heard it, I kept playing it, and then it's like, man, this makes me sad. Like
yeah,
it's a real good song, and
yeah, it's
it
depressing though.
yeah, it's depressing as shit. And then you just listen, and it's like, yeah, like I could ride to this song, and then it's
Yeah,
just like, oh shit, and then you start
yeah.
overthinking things. Yeah,
Yeah, especially
it's a
if you've been in that spot where you feel any of those, like, I think, like, I didn't even know how depressed I was until I got to my lowest, and I went back and got help, and then after
mhm,
the help, I went back and looked at that song, and I was like, "Okay, like, I can relate to that." I mean, yes, it was me, but this is years later. I can relate to that feeling because I remember how it felt to be staring into the abyss of nothingness and just laying there and feeling worthless and not wanting to do anything, and, so that it quickly became one of my favorite songs, but that was kinda like the turnaround for me was when I realized hearing it back, like, okay, maybe I am sad. And then, you know, another 2 years before I finally admitted it, you know, I made a whole bunch of mistakes in my life, and Kat kinda grabbed me by the neck and was like, "Fix your shit." And, you know, past 2 years have been pretty good, fixed it. So, but
so
yeah,
n
man.
so now you're writing, you're performing.
Yeah.
What are we doing with an album? I understand. How does that happen anymore?
Albums?
Or since you're up and coming and you're dropping music, is it just
Um,
you drop it on the streaming and you
yeah.
keep it moving, or do you have plans of doing an album, or now you
I
just
I think, for me mentally, I'd love to do an album because I can put everything in order in the way I
mm,
wanna say it in multiple songs instead of trying to fit everything into one song, you know? That's the beauty of an album. I wanted to make one I had, like, this partial story with some of the songs. If you listen to them in the right order, that you can kinda hear a story flow between the songs I put out as singles, and I wanted to do an album with those, but, it's expensive, man, and so having enough money to do a whole album at once is gonna take it takes time and a lot of money, and so Operation Encore gave me the opportunity to record 3 songs, So I had to pick what 3 I wanted to record. I have a whole bunch of songs sitting on the back burner, but I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to pick the 3 that I thought were gonna be the best right now. And, listening to the industry and music nowadays, it's albums don't do great unless you're pretty big, right? People aren't going and searching for albums anymore. They hear a single, they got very short attention span, so they hear a single and they forget about it 2 weeks later. They save it, it ends up in the bottom of their playlist, and then they find a new song. So singles are what everybody's doing now because of that, because the attention span is so short, and if you want everybody to hear every song and you have an album, they're gonna find 1 or 2 songs on that album, and they're gonna forget about the rest. So when I was debating on like, do I save all these songs and put them out together as an album, or do I put them out as I record them? Because I wanted to get stuff out there and I didn't want to wait. I still don't have enough songs recorded. If I had waited to have an album, right? I have 6 out. That's an EP. So it just takes so much time to record and so much money that it was like I want to get something out there now. So I just started. That's the reason I did it. I just started dropping them because I wanted people to hear the songs, and I wanted to see if people liked them, I wanted to see if they got streamed and got heard. So
Is there therapy in it now?
yeah, definitely.
Has that become a new therapy?
It definitely has. I had quit drinking for a year, and I think my music got a lot better in in the sound of it, but my songs I think got a little less meaningful. So that's not the reason I started drinking again. I just feel like I have a grasp on my drinking now, so I was able to start back up and not overdo it. But now I have that what's the word I'm looking for? Like middle ground. Like I have the balance between the music and the drinking where now if I'm down and I'm in a really bad spot mentally, which happens, I can go lock myself in a room upstairs, glass of whiskey and my guitar, and just make up a song or just play and babble over chords and feel better. Even if I don't sing anything, just playing chords makes me feel better. So it's definitely something that helps. And then honestly, being out now that people are listening, um, I've had bad days where I'm just in the worst mood. Like I get very irritable, and I go out to a gig and I'm just in cat will see me right before I start. Like I'm just in the worst mind space. But by the end of the gig, I'm good because I'm getting interaction from people, and I can see people smiling and having a good time, and that makes me feel good. And so I think more than me playing as therapy, me doing gigs is more therapeutic. Seeing people have a good time and being happy, and then being like, okay, like this is what I'm here for. Maybe I'm here to play for other people. And I think yeah, that's the main thing that's therapeutic. I will say this reminded me of it. When people hear your song and they tell you about it, like, man, this song made me feel this way, or this song, like, that does more to me than anything else. So that song "Happy," I had wrote it a couple years ago, right? And I put it out with the title "Never Let It Show," and this is before it was out on Spotify, iTunes, and everything. And I just put a video up on Facebook. And a girl that I went to high school with, I was really good friends with in high school, her mom had committed suicide, and she reached out to me like right after I posted it and told me what that song meant to her and asked me for the lyrics and this and that. And that was like a turning point for me. Like it was like, okay, I help somebody. Like all I want to do is help people. And knowing that some of my songs help certain people, some people, hey man, you suck, you're not very good, I don't like your music, whatever. Somebody out here likes it, and somebody out here is getting something from it. And so I think that's more therapy, is when I know somebody gets something out of it. They're like, hey, I felt that. Like the One Last Rodeo song, some people think a lot of different meanings about it, but some people are like, that song, like I can picture my granddad or whatever doing this. And then some people are like, is that somebody getting laid the last time before their girlfriend breaks up with them? I'm like, hey, whatever you want to hear, man.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you hear it as. But
That was like Blocked. Blocked's a good song.
yeah, yeah,
I actually share. I put Blocked on my story on Instagram, and I started getting these messages. When I talked to Kat, I told her people were like, "What? Why are you blocking him?" I said, "That's a song." Like I had to reevaluate and put it out there. Like, hey, no, this is a great song. Like, to listen to it.
That's awesome. Thanks, man. Yeah, that song, I did not like it when I first wrote it, and
Hmm.
it has grown on me so much. Like it's one of my favorites to play, and I think it's the one song I didn't that I put out that's not about my story, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
partially about mine because I've been in that position before, and I've had an ex-wife who liked guys a little too much, whatever. And so I've got a couple songs that are funny about that, but this one, it was my guitar player Alex. He was going through something, and he wanted to write a song to make him feel better. So we're sitting on the porch, and I said, "Tell me the story, man." And almost exactly what I like telling stories. I think country music should tell stories. So almost exactly how he told me the story is how I wrote it. And he's like, "Well, I went on Facebook and she blocked me, and I guess it's finally over. She got me. She blocked me on Facebook, and I was like, I got something there, and." Then I was like, "When did it all start?" And the week before they broke up, she went down to the beach with a couple of her guy friends and slept with one of them. And I was like, "Okay, like I think there's something here." And so I came up with the whole song off his story. And then I started thinking about, like, as I was telling his story, I was like, well, this kind of happened to me. I can feel this too. So it's got a little bit of my feeling it, but it's mostly his story, and it's the one song that's not mine. So I think I didn't like it at first because I was like, I don't feel it. But then it's like other people are singing along and I hear it, and the more I play it, I'm like, all right, this is good. And it kind of tells a good story. I don't know how. I was more focused on having a catchy chorus, the new country
Mm-hmm.
age, like, let's get a catchy chorus. And so that's how I wrote the whole song around the chorus. But um, I think because it didn't tell a deep enough story at first, I was like, man, this is just one of those, I can catch along with this song. And then if you actually listen to it, it's like, okay, it's got a story. Like, it's not bad. And then when I was recording it with Operation Encore, they suggested Adam, the producer. He was like, hey, I like that thing you did in Stubborn where you rapped. He was like, you should add a rap to this. I was like,
I
really? He
was
was like,
just about to say
yeah.
that.
I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, you should add a rap to it. Just try it out. So in the studio, we just off the dome free versed it, and we're like, yeah, that works. All right, we can put that in there. So that was like a last minute, like, last day of recording vocals. Let's just try this. And we tried it, and
Mm-hmm.
we're like, all right. It was gonna be a little breakdown there with some banjos and stuff. And then he was like, try a rap for me. I was like, all right, did that. And he was like, yeah, I like that. We're keeping that. I was like, all right.
Hell
People
yeah.
are gonna give me shit, I'm sure, because people hate rap and country, but I grew up on every type of music, so I don't,
Mm-hmm.
if I like the song, I like the song, and that one, since the rap's been in there, honestly, I like it. It's got a new feel in the way we originally wrote it. It's like rocky with country words, with everything. So yeah, that's a good one for me.
So when you get on stage, how does that feel?
It's changed over the years. So I hated crowds. I hate crowds to this day. I don't like being in crowds, but I used to hate being in front of crowds. And so every time I'd go do a gig in Alaska when I first started out, like, I'm sweating my ass off. Like, I'm freaking out. And all I can think about the first like 10 songs is, do I sound like crap? Like, I'm in my own head. And it was miserable for until I get like an hour in.
Were you
And
all boozed up?
yeah, I'd have to be. And then I realized I'd go back and watch videos, and by the third, fourth hour, I'm gone, right? And so it sounds like shit. I'm like, all right, I'm getting so boozed up to because I'm worried I'm gonna sound like shit in the beginning. I sound like shit in the end. Um, and just, I mean, I put in more than 10,000 hours now into it, and it's been so long where now I get on stage and I don't feel anything but great, right? Especially if it's a crowd. I did a show in September, and come up on stage, and I'm just like, what's going on? Everybody cheers, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this feels great. Everybody's here, and it's just not a, like, I'll get nervous beforehand a little bit, but I don't really get nervous anymore. Like, I'd say even 2 years ago, right now talking to you, I would be like a lump in my throat. A, because I'm talking to you, but also because I have a gig tonight. And just knowing I had a gig later in the day, the whole day would be ruined for me. I'd be sitting at home, not talking to anybody. Kat knows I didn't talk on gig days because I'm just nervous, got a lump in my throat. I had this like ritual where I was like, I have to shower 3 times so the steam will open me up. And I just did everything exactly the same way. And now it's just like, all right, I'll probably leave for my gig to go set up in a couple of hours, set up, have a beer at the bar, and then get up there and play. And yeah, there's no nerves anymore. It just feels nothing but great. It's awesome. Um, except for there's days where I get up there and there's like nobody there yet because it's so early. Some of these
Mm-hmm.
bar gigs, start at 6 o'clock, and people get there at like 7 or 8. And it's like playing to nobody. But then I don't even mind that anymore. I just get up there and start playing my songs, and And I've learned I'll get 2 songs in and people will hear it outside or something and come in. So it's like, all right, just play like you're playing to 100 people, no matter how many you're playing to, because they'll come in. If it sound good, they'll listen. So
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah,
That's great to hear, man, because I see cat posts a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
all of, and it looks like you stay pretty damn busy.
Man, this is like one of my least busy months, and it's pretty busy. Like I've got a gig tonight. I did not have one last night. It used to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Tuesdays were like always booked.
Hmm.
Monday and Wednesday and Sunday were usually my days off. Sometimes in Alaska, I played Tuesday through Saturday. It was crazy. But here, because I travel, I try to do like 2 a week. Excuse me. So a lot of Friday nights I'll be in Texas, and Saturday nights in Shreveport. We go out to Oklahoma sometimes, into Fort Worth. Like we're all over. And I didn't want to. I have some. I work for the lab at the med school right now, so I
Hmm.
have that all day. So I can't be gone too much. So during the week, I'm kind of focused on that. So now I have a gig tonight. I don't have another gig until next Friday in Nashville. So we're leaving on Wednesday to get up there. Um, and then I come back and I have 3 gigs in a row, and then 4 days off, and then 3 gigs in a row. But it's and that's one of my light months, you know.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, it a couple months ago I was playing 5 nights a week, and it's a lot. Like it's nice doing it, but it gets to be a lot. I'm just stressed out all the time, and that on top of school, on top of work, on top of the baby, like this has been a nice month of I've had 5 days off, didn't have to sing. I played
Hmm.
twice last week, and yeah, last Saturday was my last one, so I haven't played in 7 days, and it's nice. It's nice to be able to like come back down before going back up.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
we'll see how it goes in Alaska. I think I'm gonna have a lot back and forth. I've got like 5 gigs in the same week at the end of the month for all the solstice festivals up there. So as soon as we get there, I'm hitting the ground running with gigs. So
That's what I was gonna end with. I was gonna ask you, are you excited about going up there?
yeah,
Be-
I
Because
I'll say,
that's where the fan base is.
yeah, I'll tell you, there's pros and cons with opportunity for me. I think it's a con in the fact that down here I can be anywhere in 6 hours really. I could be in Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas. I can play so many different places and spread out my fan base,
Hmm.
um, which helps and hurts because, you're going to a new place you've never been before. You don't have a fan base there yet. And so you're playing for less people, but you're hoping that they're going to tell somebody. So it's like I have more opportunities to maybe spread out my music. And then I've just been working at the med school, and they've pretty much like I'm in the PhD program here if I was to stay here, and pretty much got a spot at the med school if I was to stay here. But now I'm moving, so it's gonna start over all that um, networking that I've been trying to do over the past couple of years here. And so, as far as school and that, like, I just want to get a doctorate or become a MD just to say, hey, I did it. All the years of
Hmm.
people being like, you're an idiot. Yeah, no, I'm not. Ha, just like a big fu. But I'd love to do music. Um, so I think going up to Alaska in the fact for music is going to help me because I've got people there that haven't left that they come out to my shows. I could pack shows there. I go play there, and people drive to come see me from 6 hours away. Like it's definitely a lot better for not so much expanding,
Hmm.
but knowing people are actually listening. It's better for me mentally. I go play a gig and everybody's listening to me singing along to my songs. It's like, hell yeah. Instead of going and playing a gig somewhere and people are like, well, I've never heard this song before. Well, obviously you haven't met me yet. And so, and I think, with Operation Encore, they're able to send me across the country. And so that's going to help a lot now that I'm in Alaska because I'll play there, but I'll still go down to Nashville. I'll still go to San Francisco. I'll fly down to Texas for a gig next fall. So I'll still be able to travel a little bit. And the radio station up there, I'm friends with the guy. And I was able to get in to open up for Chris Young in June. And there's a radio station in Virginia that's playing my stuff, K Bear. Garrett Dahl, he's been pushing for me to come open up for some people in Virginia. So I might be able to, have more opportunities because I know music people there and school people here. So it's like music wise, I think it's going to be good for me. And I love Alaska. It's beautiful. It's good people and just, there's not a lot of stress up there, even though it was beginning of my dark time, I think it's like a very stress-free place. Like you can just relax and everybody's, like I said, nice. Like all my gigs, even when I look back at videos when I first started, I was not very good. Like it's amazing what changes in 10,000 hours of playing, you know?
Oh,
They say that
absolutely.
and it's people still cheered for me and still liked me, and, you know, I'm just excited for them to come back and hear me now, 'cause I think I'm way better now than I used to be, and they liked me when I was borderline, you know? So, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and it'll give you a lot of more time to write.
Yeah, I think, that was one of my favorite things was going up to the top of the mountain near nothing and just writing. It's really hard
Mhm.
to write when people can hear you, I think, because it's like you don't wanna be so vulnerable that you're sounding stupid. That's all I can think about. So, like, even if I'm in my house, like right now, I can't write a song in my office because I know they can hear me outside on the couch, you know, and I'm like, "Well, what if I just I like to be completely alone and secluded, and then I can write songs very easily." And so
I
they
think,
float.
yeah, I agree with that
Yeah,
because I am the biggest introvert.
yeah,
But you see me on Instagram, they're like, "Oh, yeah, he's happy." No, I don't like anything. I like
yeah,
staying alone, being alone.
same.
But you go out on stage and sing in front of people,
Yeah,
and the creative part of I
yeah,
think that that's the purest emotion you could show of being vulnerable,
yeah,
of creating and someone hearing you. It's like a fear,
yeah.
like that judgment.
It still is a fear of mine, and it's just
Hmm.
like and I think that's what, like I've gotten so comfortable with the songs I do play, but somebody will
Hmm.
request something or I'll try something new, and I'm right back to where I was, like, 5, 6 years ago where I'm, like, freaking out, like, I don't know if they're gonna because I know what works now, and like I don't like crowds, right? People are like, "Well, you play in front of a crowd." I don't like that, I don't really like it interacting with people. I'm really good at talking to people, and I can meet people and become their best friend, and, you know, I'll go out to a party and get all the attention, but I don't like doing that, if that makes sense, like,
No, hey, hey, you're
it's
looking
just
in the mirror. I get it. I get
yeah,
it.
it's like
So
more of a I don't even know how to say it, but yeah, it's more of a, I yeah, I forgot what I was saying there, but, um,
yeah,
self-conscious thing.
I could be in the crowd, but I would choose not to be. I'd rather be
Yeah,
not in the crowd, but I could be in the middle of the room,
yeah,
run in the room, the
yeah,
attitude, the vibe, and but I
yeah.
would rather be in my own room
I
with
think
the
it's
lights
yeah, I
out.
think it's more so maybe it's the control thing, you know? Like,
Mhm,
if I'm gonna be in a big crowd, I'd rather control the crowd. I'd rather be
absolutely.
in the attention so I got control over it because like, the unknown, you know, you're in a crowd, so, like, I don't like going to watch concerts that much anymore because I just like to sit and watch it, and people are drunk bumping into me, I'm like, "I don't like this," but I love being on stage. I don't mind being in a room talking to a bunch of peers or talking and giving a presentation, but I don't really like watching it. Like, when I'm watching somebody give a presentation, I'm thinking about what other people are thinking about me the whole time, and I'm like, "Did I just cough out loud? Did I just sneeze? Did is my shirt looking stupid? Like, is somebody gonna bump me in the back of the head? Is somebody like all sorts of things? Is somebody about to come in that door right now and cause a ruckus?" You know? But when you're in charge, you're in charge. Like I don't know. I don't like not being in charge. So that's I guess that's the difference. And so that's probably the way you feel too. It sounds like
Oh, makes sense.
yeah, you don't like being in a crowd. Be like, but you could manage a crowd.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Now, have you heard of, Hero Stock?
yeah. He reached out to me. Is that one of your buddies or
I yeah, I recently just met him,
yeah?
and I talked to Jason Steiner. As a matter of fact, I talked to him last week,
Okay.
and he was talking about the Hero Stock they're doing September 9th.
Yeah,
September 9th they're doing, and I think they're booked up. They're booked up this year, but he said they were opening up for more for next year.
yeah.
Is that something you're trying to get down into?
Yeah, he reached out to me, a couple of days ago and, asked me about it, and I passed the information along to Kat because she has to tell me if I'm available or not. Still waiting on to hear back from her, but yeah,
Mhm.
I know I was looking into it, and I was like, "I think we could figure out a way to get down to Nebraska," and, it's just gonna be dependent on where we're at in Alaska at the time, but, if she clears me to go, I told him I'd love to be a part of it, so I'm just waiting to hear if I have other stuff booked yet. I
Mhm.
know she booked me for stuff in Texas in October, and Shreveport in October. So I just got to see if she's done anything else. And I asked her about it, but I think she forgot. So I'll have to remind her
Hey,
today.
hey, you guys are busy people.
She's yelling at me now. I can hear you.
You
Uh,
guys are you guys are busy people.
yeah, nonstop. I think we're gonna go to Lowe's after this and try to make something for the gig, some new light show. So see how we can do.
Ooh, little
Yeah,
lasers.
yeah. Tonight's a little bit darker place. We always go check out a venue whenever there's a band a couple weeks in advance to see how we're gonna do it. I like
See
to
if
be
you need the
prepared. Yeah, I
smoke
don't.
machine and
Yeah, exactly. I don't like showing up unprepared or even with like speakers or anything. So I always I hate playing anywhere unknown. I don't like unknowns. Um, I'm very, I don't know, regimented in the fact that I like to know what I'm going to be doing and think about it the day before. So
yeah, no surprise parties because if you don't know, I think personally for me, my mind just races.
yeah,
If I don't know, I need to know every aspect of
yeah,
everything of what's going down because just me thinking of you doing a sound check, me thinking about you
yeah,
doing a sound check gives me anxiety because I'd be like, I don't sound, it doesn't sound the same.
yeah, dude.
Like just that mindset would just drive me insane.
I'm more nervous doing a sound check than I am playing. It is. I sweat my ass off, and I get so much anxiety from it, and setting up, like making sure the lights are good, and so that's probably the only anxiety I got today is worried about how the sound's gonna run, where I'm gonna put the speakers, and the lighting. Because when we went there, there was really bad low ends. It just echoed a lot, so we're gonna have to spend a lot of time on the EQ. So we have to get there early today, and then also really dark. So we're trying to lighten it up a bit. It was just a dark dive bar kind of place. So we gotta try to figure out how we're gonna make it look cool and lighting. And I want everything to feel like you're paid for a concert when you see me. Like that's my goal for the past 2 years has been I want to put on a show that you remember, not just some background bar guy, no matter where I play. So that's what I try to do. So we're gonna try to do that today, hopefully.
Hey, that sounds exciting. So where could people find out more about Schaefer Mueller, Schaefer Mueller music? Where could they find out more about
Yeah, I believe, as you know, I don't run all my social media, but
it?
I believe that I have a Facebook, Instagram, and a TikTok, and I have a website. So if you look up Schaefer Mueller, if you figure out how to spell it from this, it's hard to spell, but Schaefer Mueller music on Facebook and Schaefer Mueller on Instagram. If you type in Schaefer Mueller music, it's also on Instagram. And then TikTok, same thing. I'm fortunate enough to have a weird enough name where I don't have to put numbers or anything beside it, right? I
Mm.
just got my name. So if you look me up on anything, you'll find me on it. Um, I'm not on Twitter, but yeah, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all those, just my name. And I should be the first. If you type my name all the way out, there should be no more me's out there. Hopefully, it's unique enough. And then the website, I'm thinking I'm gonna be changing the name soon, but right now it's actually the only hard one. It's SM and TNH.com. And that'll take you to all my events and everything coming up. And to past podcasts and whatever I've done media wise and everything. You can find it on there after it's been updated. So you might be able to find this on there after it's updated.
Hey,
Let's hope.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna get with you after this real quick. I'm gonna talk to you real quick.
Yeah.
Uh, give you some knowledge or permission. I'll say that. But thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Big plans coming up. We got Alaska coming up. We
Yeah,
got more music coming up. We got a lot of
definitely.
things coming up. So it's Schaefer Mueller, and this is Every Second Counts. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
So once again, thank you for listening to Every Second Counts Project. The podcast you could stream on all streaming platforms. And shout out to our sponsor, 22 Mohawks. 22 Mohawks provides animals counseling, financial counseling, suicide prevention counseling, information. Reach out to 22mohawks.com, 22 Mohawks on Facebook, 22 Mohawks on Instagram. Remember, every second counts.